everyone to the presentations for the artificial intelligence robots that we all coded. So first up, we have Denise's group, which yours truly was a part of. You're welcome. And I will go ahead and
Hi, I'm Denise.
And I'm Yusef.
I'm Connor.
I'm Tyler again.
Dwayne.
And this is Eddie. Eddie doesn't talk much now, but he will he will not shut up once we turn him on. Eddie's purpose is to happily navigate without any human assistance. Eddie can be coded 3 ways using EdPy, EdScratch, and EdBlocks. We chose EdPy, which is a text-based program language that is just like Python. And moving forward is basically what Eddie does. Eddie uses boat motors to go back and forth, and he will continue to do so until there's change in scenery.
So the change will happen when we give Eddie the power to detect obstacles. So this is the detection code, and I'm going to explain. So the first one is going to call the library called ED, and this is so we're going to turn on the obstacle detection, which is ED on. Then we're going to declare a variable called obstacle block, and we're going to give it a value of 0. After that, this one will make Eddie go forward till it detects something like obstacle. And here, the second one, this one is gonna check if there is an obstacle in front of it, and it's gonna assign the value to the variable called obstacle block. And we're gonna continue to that. We have an if loop here, and this one checks at the left if there is obstacle at the left. And the second one checks if there is obstacle on the right. And the last one here checks if there is obstacle at the head. So we're checking obstacles 3 sides, right, left, and the head. Much like the obstacle detection, there is more aspect to it, but with a different tune.
All right, so we mentioned earlier that Eddie basically won't shut up once you turn him on. We wanted to give him a little bit of a happy tune, make him a little bit of a happy bot as he navigated around. So we decided to give him some music. The way Python uses music, it's really confusing. We kind of have to create a song using a long string of characters alternating between letters and numbers, where each letter is a key on the keyboard and each number is the length of that note. As you will see once we demonstrate it, it basically sounds a lot like SpongeBob's F is for Friends song. That was a complete accident, but at least you know it's a happy bot. So we're basically just checking whenever the song finishes playing, and the moment it finishes playing, it'll just start playing it again. And this song is pretty much persistent. It never stops running. For instance, when your robot comes into contact with a wall.
And I will stop you right there because the next part is the stop and the wait, which is when Eddie runs into an obstacle, he will stop. And that is where the speed changes to 0. And it will wait before taking the next action. So it waits 250 milliseconds, which is roughly like a quarter of a second. And after it does that, it goes forwards and backwards, which is all fine, but we need to make it more interesting with a little more twists and turns.
So after it's done its stop, it will proceed to use the ED drive, as mentioned earlier, forward and back. However, for the last part, it will use each individual motor, so the left motor and the right motor. But if it wants to go left, it'll make the left motor go backwards and the right motor go forward, and that'll give it a rotating motion, much like the way a tank operates. So the way the code is set up, you'll have the selected motor and then the direction. So we have the backwards motion, forward motion, as well as the speed, and then the designated distance, which for the ED library will be 6 centimeters. Now, the turn speeds have to be the same, otherwise it'll be a really stuttery motion, it's just not smooth. which we followed that with a smooth motion, centimeters, and once it does its rotation, much like most normal movies, after you get to the final ending line, you replay it. So going on from there, we're back at the beginning.
Now for demonstration. I'm going to need you guys to move your feet around if you see him running away from you, because he will just keep going until he finds a way to turn around. That means, Rick, I'm going to need you to block that off for us. Beautiful.
Eddie's a great robot to have because he doesn't need us to direct where he's going.
And it essentially is using Python as a library, which is a language that already exists, so it's really easy to pick up if you already have a little bit of experience in programming.
Also, it comes with a library called ed, so we can call a function from the library so that we can easily program. But one of the cons is that we had a trouble to use the web IDE, so we were forced to use the phone one.
So, a con, unfortunately, is that the robot does not detect falls. So if there's just suddenly a drop there, he's going to go off willy-nilly like some lemming. There's also the sensors can be inconsistent at times. So it'll hit forward and then it'll just kind of get confused for a second. Also, there's a matter of the LEDs. With the base programming from the ED library, it doesn't like using them both at the same time for us. So the LEDs can be an issue at times.
Eddie will continue to move forward until, for basically forever, unless he detects an object. And he does this all without needing any human assistance, much like when he falls off the table.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. That's when he needs human assistance and maybe a hug. Any questions?
No question?
Yeah, real quick. How earlier when you were developing it, you mentioned that you were having trouble uploading the code to the board itself. How did you come to realize that using your phone was like the better idea to?
That was Denitza's suggestion. I was just about ready to like throw this thing in the trash and find a better robot, and Denitza said, let's just try it on our phones. And I was like, what kind of recommendation is that? So I loaded the website up on Safari and plugged it in, and that was the only time it's ever worked. And for some reason, this device will only work if you use your phones. It won't. It doesn't think computers are right.
So what's the name behind, what's the background behind the name?
The company that produces is Edison, and something tells me if they weren't intending for that, very good idea on their
We
company.
just went with the most basic name.
It's a cute name too.
It is.
Eddie. Thank you.